who wouldn't want their entire identity to be revolved around Chris Pine? In a lot of ways, we all are. Hi, it's Molly Catherine Turner, and welcome to today's episode of Movie Club. Today we're here to talk about Wonder Woman 1984 and kind of the weirdness around this movie. So let's just dive in. Wonder Woman 1984 is a 2020 film directed by Patty Jenkins and written by Jenkins and Jeff Johns and Dave Callaham. Johns and Callaham are some kind of storied DC and Marvel writers, and Jenkins, of course, helmed the first Wonder Woman film with Gal Gadot. Let's talk about this movie. It seemed like before I even had a chance to watch it, which literally was like 2 days after its release to HBO Max, people were just freaking out about it. And kind of my initial response to that was just, what was the expectation for this movie? And I mean no offense to any, diehard Wonder Woman fans. The first Wonder Woman movie it was fine, it was good. I cried because I was just like, there's women on screen fighting, which always makes me emotional for some reason because it's something we see so rarely. Like literally anytime in a comic book movie or Star Wars movie where we get to see women like suit up and do badass things, I get emotional because it's just so awesome. So, I liked the first Wonder Woman movie. To me, was it a good movie? I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't like on the level of really any Marvel movie, I don't think. I think it was by far the best of any of the DC movies I've seen. Overall, I think Wonder Woman 1984 aligned with the standards of the first Wonder Woman movie. But let's kind of dive into it a little bit more. I also rewatched the first Wonder Woman movie in preparation for the second one because I hadn't seen it since it came out in theaters, and I kind of wanted to refresh my memory a little bit. And basically the plot of that movie is Steve, what's-his-face, Chris Pine's character, somehow ends up in Themyscira, which is the Amazon world, which is completely isolated from everything else, sort of like Wakanda in Black Panther. Wonder Woman is basically just like, ooh, a sexy man. I've never seen one of those before. And her entire character and motivation and everything that revolves around her identity is focused on Chris Pine. Which, you know what? I'm not mad at it, really. It makes sense. Who wouldn't want their entire identity to be revolved around Chris Pine? In a lot of ways, we all are. But, was it disappointing for, at that time, the only leading comic book female star, because this was before Captain Marvel came out, to have so much of her story be centered on a man? Yes. Even though it was the devilishly charming and handsome Chris Pine, who of course carried so much of that movie. It was disappointing to me, but I still enjoyed that movie. And honestly, that was basically the entire movie. Like, she falls in love with Steve and they do stuff in World War II times. And Diana has to learn, like, oh, I'm a superhero now. But there really wasn't a lot of exploration of her superhero identity, how that ties into the Amazonian culture or whatever. I'm not a huge DC comic book knowledge person, so don't at me because I'm sure I'm getting things wrong. Again, compare this to Captain Marvel, which was very much like her figuring out that she is a superhero. And that is it was literally an origin story, which is take out the fact that she's got superpowers, and the original Wonder Woman movie is basically just a romance. That's pretty much what that movie is. It's a World War II romantic movie. It's kind of Hanover Street plus a little bit of, superpowers and fighting sprinkled in.
Suddenly discovered a reason to live.
I love you, Hillary.
Hanover Street, rated PG.
So that's my hot take there. Again, enjoyed that movie, but when I first saw all of these, crushing reactions and hate pouring in, I really was kind of perplexed because I just assumed people don't remember what the first one was. Wonder Woman 1984, I kind of went into this movie with basically no expectations. I'm not a huge DC fan. I was excited for it. I mean, who's immune to the charms of things being made about the 80s? And, what I had seen of the stills and stuff looked fun, but I didn't really know anything about these characters. I didn't know like the character that Kristen Wiig was playing or anything. I was excited to see her in a comic book movie. So I went in with pretty just even-keeled expectations. And overall, I feel like my response like makes more sense. I don't know what people were expecting. To me, I actually think Wonder Woman 1984 was a better movie than the first one on the whole. Think I enjoyed it more because it had a brighter color palette. It was less of the dark World War II stuff, which I feel like has kind of been hashed out a lot. Do we really need to have, and no offense, that just feels like something we had seen a lot in cinema. The first Wonder Woman movie was like Hanover Street meets Captain America, the First Avenger, except for no actual hero origin story. The second one, I was kind of excited to see her move forward in time a little bit, even though she felt very, as a character, like she hadn't developed at all. Diana was still just all focused on Steve. 45 years have passed in this time and she still hasn't gotten over that loss. I thought that was a little bit questionable. Again, love Chris Pine. I also could have my entire identity centered on him in a heartbeat. Like, the woman works at the Smithsonian. She's in DC. She's got things happening. She's wearing cool 80s clothes and she doesn't go anywhere. She has no friends. Kristen Wiig is the first friend that she's made in this time. I just had problems with that. I don't know. But by the time that Chris Pine did show up, I did enjoy that part of the movie. I thought it was a very sweet reunion. But I also kind of question what the point of the entire movie is. Just to bring him back in order just to kill him again. I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish. I mean, should she not have learned the first time around that she can live without him in that 45-year span of time? I mean, I guess it was nice that they actually got to be a couple, because they really didn't get to be a couple in the first movie. They basically kissed and then he died. And so in this movie, we actually got to see them, be a couple and all that stuff. It just felt very frustrating to be like, we're bringing him back, but not really, because of the whole wish scenario. So I'm going to set aside the Chris Pine thing for a little bit. I feel like I've hammered that on a lot. And let's talk about the actual plot mechanics of the movie, which I truly didn't understand what was happening. So basically, the movie revolves around, aside from, Steve coming back to life, Wonder Woman works at the Smithsonian with Kristen Wiig's character, who basically, in the beginning of the movie, Kristen Wiig does a very good job at playing the kind of, normal kind of awkward character that she plays, who is like a gemologist and a cryptozoologist and like 25 different ologists, which I thought was a bit much. Like, just make her one thing. And basically they inspect some sort of stone at the beginning. And I'll be honest, this was the part of the movie where I kind of wasn't paying super close attention, because I was just like, what is happening here? And basically the stone ends up being a monkey's paw, where you touch it, you make a wish, and that wish comes true, but then there are consequences. So when Diana touches the stone, she wishes for Steve to come back, but then her powers become weaker. Except for they never really seem to go away. I never was fully able to understand, like, her powers never really went away. So what was actually the monkey's paw thing for her? There were a lot of things. Now I'm trying not to pick apart this movie too much, because I was saying I really didn't have too many problems with it, and I really didn't. But also, there were a lot of things about this movie that didn't make a lot of sense. And the more I talk about it, the more that becomes apparent. The monkey's paw thing, honestly, to me, I'm very curious. I haven't done any research on it because I truly don't care. I'm curious, though, like, is this an actual storyline in the DC comic verse? I'm assuming it is, because who the hell else? Where would this have come from if this just came out of some person's head of a cool idea? I hope it didn't. I do think overall the acting was really good in this movie, considering sort of the insane plots that were happening. I think Pedro Pascal really had a great time. Like, I really enjoyed, he was like almost on the verge of over the top all the time, and was in some moments of the movie over the top. But like, he really ate it up, and I think he knew he was in. He knew what movie he was in. Good actors know what movie they're in. And he also, I think, did a good job even with the emotional parts of his performance, which felt, not because of him, but because of the writing, shoehorned in. So I did really enjoy his performance. And I think Kristen Wiig actually did really great too. Like, it was fun to see the arc of her character, unresolved as it may have been. I think she did a great job with it. And I hope she continues to get more big dynamic roles like that. Put her in a Marvel movie where they know a little bit better how to write. I guess overall, those are my thoughts. I'm really curious, like, what the hell will the next Wonder Woman movie be? Because they've completely isolated Diana. You know, once again, she has nobody. You know, really the only growth that she went on in this movie is that she finally let go of Steve, I guess, and that she found the armor. But, you know, I feel like at this point, a superhero, after 2 movies, should have at least kind of like a Scooby Gang, you know? Like, we're going to jump ahead at some point. And again, I don't care enough about the DC universe as a whole to really understand this, but like, shouldn't she be like trying to form allyships with other heroes? Like, at some point she's going to have to get into the Justice League. And it doesn't seem like they're thinking about these pieces all coming together. It's very confusing to me, and I think the biggest actual critique of the film I have, other than just like, it was kind of messy, that's the overall arc of what I'm saying, is that it is really disappointing that they continue to double down on just we're going to make Wonder Woman a romance, rather than actually making it about, you know, Diana as a person. As much as I love watching Chris Pine do a fashion montage and, you know, whatever the hell else, maybe the studio doesn't have confidence in the ability of Gal Gadot's performance and ability to carry the movies without him, which is frustrating, you know. Very frustrating if that's the case, because why else would they do this 2 movies in a row, have Chris Pine basically be the co-star? And he works in a different way than, again, to compare it to Captain Marvel, than like Samuel L. Jackson does in that movie, who is very much working as a tie-in to the rest of the cinematic universe and is more of an engine in the plot, rather than you don't have an identity or a character, so I am filling in those blanks for you. Overall, believe it or not, I did enjoy the movie, as insane as it was. And I do think, I'm still curious, like, what about this disappointed people so much compared to the first one? Because to me, the 2 movies really are pretty much on par with each other, especially the romantic part of it. Like, if people are just now having an issue with that, that was an issue in the first movie, and that just remained consistent. There were big improvements in the production values, the lighting, all of that. And there were some really, really beautiful shots of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman that I loved. I think Patty Jenkins really kind of stepped up in terms of the action stuff, which I really liked. The writing was just a mess. If you really, really loved this movie, or if you are one of those who had high expectations because you loved the first one and this one let you down, let me know what you thought about it. Because I am just really kind of curious why the reaction to this movie was the way it was. But you know what? It doesn't really matter what we think, because this movie's been a huge success. It made $17 million in its opening weekend, which I am glad for Wonder Woman. It did better than Tenet, best movie since the pandemic started. And of course, they've already greenlit the 3rd movie with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot returning. So good for them. I want them to make as many movies as they can, because I always support women. Even if the movies are a little murky. All right, so as you can see, time has passed since I last sat here with you. I still have a lot of questions about this movie, Wonder Woman 1984, so let's chat about it. There were 2 things actually that are positives that I wanted to mention that I forgot in the first part of this video. First of all, Natasha Rothwell of Insecure, her bit in the movie, which, you know, was kind of understated and small, but I thought she was great, and I was so happy to see her, and I hope she just continues to get more and more stuff. So I wanted to shout her out and her part out. Number 2, and of course, spoilers have been throughout this whole thing, but this is a bigger spoiler. The end credits scene with Linda Carter was by far the best part of the movie. She looked gorgeous. There was the tie-in to the actual plot to me was vague. The kind of tie-in was that Wonder Woman had been searching for this armor from someone from her planet named Artemisia, I think was the name. And then basically the reveal was that Linda Carter is that person, and she was just kind of like living among the people. And we see her at the very end saving somebody. Maybe there are other Amazons, is maybe where they're going to go with it, that are out there, which would be cool. Like, I wish they had done that as the plot, but it doesn't matter because just seeing her, and I mean, my God, that woman, it's like she has lived up to the Wonder Woman iconic status her entire career and really held up that mantle. It's just an incredible legacy. The blue cape that she wore, she just looked stunning, and it was a great moment for the fans. So that was by far, to me, the best part of the movie. That actually kind of leads into the next bit of rumination, which is I'm still stuck on what Wonder Woman has been doing in the time that's passed between the first movie and second movie. I'm really thinking about the fact that we see her gaining more powers in this movie, and like, it's kind of troubling that in 40 years she hasn't really learned anything new until Steve comes back. Like, she has to have Steve be the one who teaches her how to fly and you get her flight powers. So how, the way that the writers have set this up, how is she going to move forward in the next movie, being able to grow and develop? Because she is so dependent on Steve. That's really been the issue and challenge with the way that they've written this franchise. I'm very just perplexed with why, and it's also disappointing because these are movies that are, like Patty Jenkins directed this. It's not like this was directed by a man. You can't pin it on that. She did work on the screenplay. It was written with 2 other men, but I mean, she had input. So it's not like you can even point to that and say, oh, well, it was written and directed by a man, so they just didn't get it. No, like, this is very much Patty Jenkins' vision, and has been all along. So I'm very confused as to why she made the choices she made. I don't know if it's more of a studio thing or if she is just very invested in Steve and Diana, and that's where she wants to go with the character. But then it's like, why even make it a superhero movie at all? Because that can be any character. Any character can have a romance and have that be their journey. Whereas Wonder Woman, she needs to have something beyond that. But I feel like I already talked about that a lot. I'm really more just like, what the hell has she been doing in the last 40 years? She, apparently got a very stable job at the Smithsonian, which I'm also curious, like, has she had to move around a lot since she doesn't age, or has she been able to somehow maintain a mythos? Like, there's a lot of cool things they could have done to show us that passage of time, but really they were so invested in showing us the characters from the first movie that we just were like, oh, she maintained friends with Lucy Davis until she died, which was a fun callback. And then, oh, she's still sad about Steve. But they missed out because of that on so much development of the character of Diana that we could have seen in that time. Like, what if she had some fun adventures in the 60s that we could have seen? Like, that could have also been references to the Wonder Woman show. Like, that would have been a really fun way to kind of start out the movie, to show what all has happened in that time period that would also help develop her character, instead of just being, I've been pining after Chris Pine, for 45 years while working in a museum. That's just not a lot of development for this, big character. I think that's it. I think that's all I want to say. I feel like I keep reiterating the same thing over and over again because it's just frustrating to me. Thankfully, I am not like, I don't mean this in a hateful way, but thankfully I'm not a massive Wonder Woman fan. I'm not like emotionally tied to this character from like the comic books or whatever. So I wasn't like overwhelmingly disappointed or anything by the movie. Overall, like I said in the first part of the video, I still enjoyed it. It's just frustrating that they continued to double down on making Diana's identity so tied in to Steve, when this movie has so much potential and this story has so much potential. I apologize for all of the chaotic rambling. My future movie reviews will not be so disorganized, I promise. But you know what? I feel like it kind of goes with the vibe of Wonder Woman 1984. So there we go. And I promise this is it.